Alright, so today I'm going to attempt to remove my alternator on a roof conversion 911 2001 Porsche Turbo. Anyway, I've never done this before. There's limited stuff on YouTube, so I figured what I'm going to do is at least try and film this so it can help others do the same job. So at least for what I've watched so far, I'm going to try and attempt to remove the airbox cleaner here. There's a couple of bolts, so I'm going to remove the airbox. I'm going to take as much as I can out of the way without harming any sensitive equipment, just to give me room to work. The alternator is located down inside here, and I did get a hint from one of the users on YouTube about checking the voltage regulator prior to replacing the entire alternator. So I bought a voltage regulator. We're going to put that on and see how that works, and we'll take it from there. Thanks. So, like I said before, I'm trying to just really gain a lot of access and not have to really try and cram my hands anywhere. So what I'm looking at is removing this intercooler tube, and it goes in there, and it looks like you might be able to access part of it by removing the lamp. So I'm going to remove the left tail lamp in order to access it. Let's see if that works. Okay, so now I've removed the airbox, and I've also removed the O2 sensor. This goes on here like so. Basically, you just have to press really hard on this side button and then kind of wriggle it loose. I found it was easier to do once I removed the airbox a little bit and got it out of its perch. So there's only one bolt holding the airbox on, and that's located right there where you see that empty spot next to the latch on the right, and this is where the bolt goes through. Now, as you can see underneath, there are two rubber grommets. There's a bunch of holes, but there are two rubber grommets, okay? And the best way to remove this airbox is basically start from the right side and pull up, and then pivot it after that intercooler hose is kind of detached and out of the way. I also, of course, removed, as you can see here, right on the right side of that blue thing, that tube down there, the intake tube, I just released both clamps. Okay, so the airbox is out of the way, and I also put a sock in this intake because I just don't want to drop any crap in there. Here is the intercooler hose. So here's the alternator, and this looks like it's going to be kind of an interesting task. There's a lot of stuff in the way that I need to get out, so I'm going to start working on that, and as I go along I'll let you know what I remove. Okay, so what else have I done? I've also removed this intake from the intercooler tube, stuffed the sock in here, and now I'm removing this piece right here. Looks like some kind of sensor, but overall I'm going to remove this entire piece right here. And to do that, so far that I can tell, it requires two bolts to be removed, which are 10 or 11 millimeter. Let me see, they're 10 millimeter. And then this one up top I removed, and it's slightly shorter than the other two, and that holds the sensor in. Once again, with that sensor harness, which is located right here, I tucked it out of the way. And there's also a tube that I took off of this big intake piece. It has a slightly shorter bolt, and I'm going to be really careful pulling it out. I believe it's some type of O2 or mass airflow sensor, so I just want to be careful with it. I might bag it in a Ziploc or something so I don't get any grease on it while I work. So I just took this piece out, and it is indeed some kind of a flow sensor, I believe. And the best way to do it is disconnect it first and then just kind of shimmy it out directly straight up. It does have an O-ring on it, and there's only that O-ring. So continuing on. Okay, so I think I'm about ready to move this big black wide off center pipe, whatever it's called. So I unloosened both of the straps back here. This is why I removed that sensor, and that was kind of difficult, so I just really made them both very loose. I thought I had all this. Okay, well, so this thing pulls straight out. Be aware, there was one tube that I missed here. You see this one just on the right? That just kind of pulled off of, I'll show you here real quick. It pulled off right here, the back side of this. There's a little nipple on the back. You can see it there. My finger is just touching the tip of it now. So anyway, sorry about the focusing aspects here, but it's out. So now we're looking at probably removing this bracket in order to get to that alternator piece in the very back. Alright. Okay, this is where I'm at with this now. So I'm going to loosen this bolt and then this bolt, which the head is obviously on the other side. It's going to be a little tighter. I marked them with paint, so as you can see I already moved this one, loosened it. I don't know, I just mark them with paint, so it kind of eliminates, potentially eliminates having to retorque them, so I can just get them in the right spot again when they're seated. And then we're going to take it from there and see if this thing will pull out. I kind of want to be mindful of the tension and the idler pulleys here. I got to see how those adjust to let me pull that out. And also the belt routing is obviously very important, so I'll start taping once I get a little further. Okay, so back to it. I removed both of the bolts on the alternator. As you can see there, this one's gone, this one's gone. One comes from the back, and it's the shorter of the two. There's a picture of the bolts. That long one on the right goes on the front, and the other one goes in the back. Here's the front, and this is the one that comes in through the back. So anyway, it's a little loose, but I discovered that using a 15mm socket right here where the idler pulley is, and you put tension on it and it pulls the entire assembly up and gives it slack. See that? Anyway, there you go. Okay, I guess it was pretty silly of me to think that this thing would come right out after taking the belt off and removing those two bolts. So I'm going to continue to further just remove stuff around it. Whether or not I need to actually do that, I don't know. But right now I did these two little guys that are attached to this kind of a bracket, and I'm going to do these other two in hopes of gaining more access to the alternator. These two go and they attach to the oil filter bracket, so it might give me a little more perspective on the overall job. On the continued quest to move things out of the way so I can move this alternator out of here, but now I'm taking off this pulley, backing this out. So once again, just mind the routing of the belt. It's going to be important. There was one more bolt. As you can see, the short one, that's a 13mm. I don't know if you can see it there. Yeah, the real short one. That was in the back, right back here. Fairly easy to get out. I started to take off this bracket, but these Allen heads will not budge. So I'm going to see if I can do it with it in there still after I remove this idler pulley. Okay, well, I removed that idler pulley and it just barely moved a little bit and popped out. So now all I'm going to do is remove these two wires on the back, being careful. I did not disconnect the battery. So hopefully there's not going to be any issues, because I'm going to try not to ground out any of the wires on anything. I have tips of rubber gloves I'm going to put over them. And the reason I didn't undo the batteries is because I heard that it throws an error code if you disconnect, and anyway, I don't want to deal with that. So I will be careful and hopefully nothing else will happen. Alright, well, it's out of the car now. lo and behold, I did exactly what I was trying not to do, and I ended up grounding a metal tool against part of the metal engine something bracket, and it arced. So hopefully it's not going to do anything. I guess I'll find out when I start this thing. But as you can see, I put a rubber tip over the hot end of that. It might be too late, but it's just hard to get off of the actual alternator. But what I do recommend is this bracket that I took off right here. That goes on right here. That houses the, as you can see, the positive end. Undo that before you take off the alternator, and then isolate it that way. Well, the thing is out of the car, and on the left I have the new voltage regulator. It's roughly a $20 part that is a lot of times a culprit to low voltage warnings on the 996 alternators and the turbo alternators. So what I'm going to do is remove this plastic cover here, access the voltage regulator underneath, and replace it with the new one. Take it over to O'Reilly's Auto Parts or whoever tests alternators and see if it's putting out what it should be, instead of putting it all the way back in the car and finding out it's not working and it's actually the alternator itself. Alright, okay, now that the alternator is fully removed, I have the new and the old voltage regulator on. So the old one is on the right and the new one is on the left. As you can see, this part right here, these contacts are significantly shorter on the old one as opposed to the new one. So I'll put these things face to face, and if they were of equal length, they should both touch the base of each other. But as you can see, that's how much shorter. So those ones have worn down. So I'm really hoping that that's the actual problem, and will have saved myself quite a bit of money. Alrighty, well, we got, I went to O'Reilly's, had the alternator tested after I removed this old voltage regulator and installed the new one. Once again, if you're going to compare the two, look at this right here, these two little pieces. If they're significantly shorter, then that means they're not making contact anymore and able to conduct the electricity. So I was pretty sure, but I just wanted to go ahead and test it for free at O'Reilly's before I actually went and installed everything again. So hopefully the install will go a little smoother than it was to take everything apart, but that's never the case with me.